We are live.
Okay.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Devin Kinsella. I'm the Vice Provost for Online Learning at University of Missouri in Kansas City, and I'm also the Innovate Conference Chair this year. I'm here with Angela Gunder and John Kao, who is our keynote speaker for Thursday. And we're very excited to actually have him come and kind of give us a little prelude to what he's going to be talking about in the conference. His talk really is Innovating Education and Education for Innovation, which I think is kind of a very interesting talk. And, you know, we've been talking to John for a little bit before we're doing the recording, and really is quite an interesting person with a lot of really interesting ideas. And also, having seen some of his previous keynotes and read some of his materials, I think this is going to be a very exciting keynote, and to really kind of bring together the thoughts and concepts that we're trying to get to at the Innovate conference. So, John, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Well, thanks very much for the opportunity to kind of make a bridge to the participants prior to the conference. It's a virtual bridge, obviously, but then we're talking about online learning. So I guess we're kind of eating our own cooking here. So I've been working in the innovation field, broadly defined, for about 30 years. In that time, I've seen lots of different flavors of innovation. And I've come to the conclusion that it's one of the most overused but poorly understood terms in the lexicon. And it's especially a problem now because more and more people are talking about it in more and more different ways. So just to reflect for a moment on what the keynote is going to be about, you know, partly it's going to be sharing a perspective on innovation that I think will be useful to the participants, because it's no big deal these days to express a point of view about what it is, but to actually define it in a way that leads to the prospect of action that results in some kind of positive change is very difficult. Most people out there who are so-called innovation experts are pretty good at doing what I call the hand waving and, you know, saying, well, you know, it's really important, and if you don't have it, you're going to be in big trouble. But they're not really that good at saying what it is that you should do about it. You know, and so I've had a pretty eclectic practice base. I mean, I've worked not just, you know, 14 years at Harvard Business School developing the innovation curriculum there, but, you know, I've had hands-on experience producing feature films in Hollywood. I've had hands-on experience producing plays on Broadway. Got nominated for a Tony Award, actually, for doing that, which was a total fluke. You know, I've started high-tech companies. I've advised heads of state on national innovation policy. I have a medical background. I have an MBA. You know, I've done a lot of different things. And every one of these has been kind of like a bit of a personal case study in how innovation works in a particular culture or a particular line of activity. So I think I have a pretty good perspective on what it is, and more importantly, how to present a framework that will be very useful for the participants, and to kind of enrich it also with reference to one of my favorite areas of knowledge and practice, which is music, specifically improvised music, and specifically jazz. So, you know, the fact that the conference is taking place in New Orleans, which is the birthplace of jazz, is a great coincidence. And I think there's a lot to be said, actually, about the mindset of improvisational artists and the mindset of creative entrepreneurs, which I'll try to make a link. But not to be too wordy here, but I guess the other thing that I'll try to do in my keynote is to really bring these concepts home for people that are in the education area and are concerned about how to innovate their own practice within their own institution, how innovation is fundamentally changing education, but also how you have to educate for innovation. You know, this whole idea that we need innovators and entrepreneurs is, I think, almost like gospel these days. But again, I think educational institutions, for the most part, are scratching their heads to try to figure out, well, how do we actually help people learn how to do this stuff? And that is something that I've been spending the better part of 30 years refining my craft in. So I propose to share a little bit of that knowledge as well. And then there's a masterclass format during which I'll get to work with people I mean, you can't accomplish everything in a brief period of time, but what I will endeavor to do is to help people either start their journeys or to navigate the journeys that they're on so that they can get to a better place.
That sounds like it's going to be like a good set of keynotes and a masterclass. There is one thing that you had asked the other keynote speaker that's going to be on Friday, Darlene Cavalier. You asked her some questions about STEM education and the change of it to STEAM, and now the inclusion of STEAMY, so E being entrepreneurship. And so it'll be interesting for people to watch the video from Darlene and her response to you. And so she actually had a question for you as well. And so with that, what I'd like to do, I'll just kind of read the question out. It says, I'd like to ask John which key instructional elements from the EdgeMakers can be applied to citizen science to help researchers or project leaders and the participants of citizen science take this movement to the next level.
So first of all, EdgeMakers is a company that I started about 4 years ago to create what I hoped would be a definitive learning system for innovation. It's going quite well. And I think the thing I want to say is we have a core framework within EdgeMakers that shapes the learning experience, because we don't look at innovation as being just one thing. We look at it as being, in a way, the integration of a whole bunch of traditional disciplines. So when I think about the question of my colleague, I would say that every part of the EdgeMakers framework is relevant. So really, we talk about 5 core disciplines. We talk about the importance of creating new ideas, which is a individual psychological phenomenon, an interpersonal social phenomenon, an organizational phenomenon, and also a societal phenomenon. It has to be looked at in a variety of ways. And originating ideas is important, but then you have to develop them because typically ideas require refinement, and that's a process. So there are a number of disciplines that are relevant to that, whether it's design, and design thinking is very much in vogue these days, whether it's collaboration in terms of mobilizing a community of people around an idea, whether it's narrative and story development to make ideas influential. And then there's entrepreneurship, which is all about how to take ideas and create value from them, right? And so it's really when all of these disciplines come together that, in my opinion, you get innovation. But also, I think from the point of view of civics and civic engagement, we're in this very turbulent era where people, if they're going to exercise some form of 21st century civic duty, it's not about applying old formulas in the same way. It's really about activism, which means coming up with ideas, but more importantly, making them influential and being willing to translate those ideas into some form of value. So social value or economic value or both. So, I think that those characteristics or those disciplines that I just described and that integrated framework is very relevant. The other thing is that, I'm a firm believer that you can't learn this stuff by reading a book or hearing a lecture. You have to actually not only do it, but you have to practice it. Just like you don't learn how to play jazz piano by seeing pictures of pianos. You learn it by sitting down and playing the piano for years. So I think that there's a way in which this notion of activism and engagement is baked into the EdgeMakers curriculum. And we also talk about the notion of our curriculum as purpose-driven. So we picked sustainability as kind of like the generational wicked problem that we wanted to suffuse throughout the learning experience, again, to build on what I think of as being kind of almost an indigenous idealism. Young people are smart. They understand the world's messed up and they want to do something about it at an earlier age than I think ever before. So why not be the ones that provide the tools for them to engage early? So, to me, we could debate, I suppose, the definition of civics, but the notion of practicing an EdgeMaker's skill set or set of capacities to create social value seems to be a pretty good definition.
Okay, Angela, you have some questions?
No, I just actually want to turn this around and thank you, John, for joining us for this intro to not only your keynote, but to all that you're going to share as a compelling call to action for the many participants at the conference. And I think that it is meant to be that we're going to be in a city with the vibrancy and culture that is represented by New Orleans, with an accomplished jazz pianist as well. And we're looking forward to all that we'll be able to discover and learn and do together, both at the conference, but then beyond that, with the points of engagement that you're going to offer to the people there, and the reminder that we have great things to accomplish, but we have to do it together, and we have to be intentional about the work that we're doing together. So for those of you that are still trying to figure out whether you're going to be at OLC Innovate, this is a great time to register. And I do want to mention that being a part of this experience is not necessarily something that has to happen face-to-face. So if you're looking to attend virtually, we're going to be doing quite a bit to bring all of our virtual attendees into the conference using a lot of innovative technology. So we have a burgeoning community of folks, bigger than we've ever had before for this conference, that have already signed up to attend as virtual participants. So know that you have many ways to not only hear John speak, but to connect with him and work with him throughout the conference, as well as all of the others that are gathered there. So thanks for this time together today, and we are truly looking forward to meeting up in New Orleans.
Yeah, hear, hear.
Thank you.
Thanks.